Hello everyone. I wish you are safe and healthy at the time of this health crisis going on due to COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown. In today's lecture, we will talk about basic principle of mass spectroscopy, which is one of the very powerful analytical technique known. And the mass spectra, how do you interpret mass spectra? We'll discuss about this aspect as well, and then application of mass spectroscopy in different areas. So mass spectroscopy is an extremely valuable analytical technique, and it provides molecular weight estimation, mass estimation of any analyte from a small molecular weight compound to large bio macromolecules with the precision of at least 4 decimal points. So that's why it's a very valuable technique when you need to estimate mass of compounds. Up to 4 decimal points, very accurate mass, you can at least up to 4 decimal point you can very accurately estimate mass of any analyte, anything in fact. And in this technique, any analyte is an object, any molecule which is under study. So an analyte is converted into gaseous ions, and then their mass to charge ratio m/z is determined in mass spectroscopy. So this is something common in all type of mass spectrometer. So any compound which you want to study under mass spectroscopy, it should be in gaseous form and it should be in ionic state. So mass spectrometer can only analyze the ions which are into the gaseous state. So the outcome, the final result of a mass spectrometer is called mass spectra, where on y-axis abundance of ions, the relative concentration of ions, is plotted against m/z on the x-axis. So you see many peaks in the mass spectra, and each peak corresponds to a specific m/z value. There are 4 features of a typical mass spectrometer. Production of ions in the gas phase, that's what happens in every mass spectrometer. Analyte is converted into ions in gaseous state. Then those ions are accelerated with a specific velocity by applying a high voltage. And those ions, the beam of those ions is analyzed into a mass analyzer, which give you the calculation of m/z of those ions. And then finally those beam of specific m/z ions, they are separately or simultaneously detected by a detector. So the first step in mass spectrometer is ionization of the sample. A sample is ionized by different methods, and when a sample is ionized, then the ion may be unstable, so it can give rise to daughter ions also. And then this beam of ions is focused, this is accelerated using a high voltage, and then those accelerated ions, they are allowed to pass through a magnetic field. And under the magnetic field, we know that as per electromagnetism, when you have accelerated ions going through under a magnetic influence, under a magnetic field, the trajectory acquired by those ions is not a straight line. In fact, their trajectory is curved into circle, and means their path is deviated. The ions, when they pass through, accelerated ion beam is passing through a magnetic field, they acquire a circular trajectory. So their deviation occur, deflection of ions occur under magnetic field. And in a mass spectrometer, this deflection is measured, which is used to calculate m/z of specific ions in the sample. Principle wise, if you have a charged particle, for example here, and it going through this direction, and of course before that it is accelerated with a high constant voltage, and the magnetic field applied into the perpendicular direction. So this charged particle will have a force applied onto it. That force is called QVB sine theta, where Q is the charge on the particle, V is the velocity which is coming from voltage. You have given a fixed voltage, high voltage, in order to accelerate that ion, and B is the strength of magnetic field. And this force QVB is basically because this particle is going through a circular path, a circular trajectory, it means this force which is applicable on the particle, this is basically converted into the centripetal force, and that is mv square upon r. So QEB is equal to mv square upon r when you have a charged particle which is going through at a constant velocity under a defined magnetic field. Generally this is actually QEB sine theta, but when you have this velocity and magnetic field in a perpendicular direction, sine theta would be equal to 1. So we can say that QEB is equal to mv square upon r. mv square upon r is centripetal force. So from here, the radius of this deflection, the radius of the circular path which is taken up by a charged particle under magnetic field, that radius can be calculated. So that radius would be equal to mv square upon QVB, or further simplify this, it will be mv upon QB. So this is radius of a circle which is adopted by a charged particle when that is accelerated under a defined magnetic field B. Similarly, because these charged particles, they are accelerated using a constant voltage, so they will have a kinetic energy also. So that kinetic energy, half mv square, is equal to Q capital V. So Q is the charge and capital V is the voltage which is used in order to accelerate those ions. So from here we can say that small v velocity is equal to under 2 qv upon m. So the value of velocity can be replaced in order to calculate the value of r. So r is actually equal to 1 upon b under root 2m capital V upon q. So r is basically deflection. It measures deflection of those ions under magnetic field. And if, for example, if r is less, it means the deflection is high. Magnetic field is too strong to pull those ions in its direction. So r will be less in case when magnetic field is stronger on the ions. So it means if you increase magnetic field, the value of r will be increased because r is inversely proportional to the b. So if you, in other words, if you increase strength of the magnetic field, the radius of the circle which is acquired by the charged particle under that B magnetic field would be less. It means deflection would be more. Similarly, it's also r depends on m by q mass to charge ratio as well. If m by q or m by z is less, the value of r would be less. M by z less means it's a lighter ion. When you have lighter ion, the radius will be less. Radius less means the deflection will be more. Similarly, we can say that when the ion is more charged, if charge is more on the ion, that also will give rise to less value of r. Means it will deflect more in the magnetic field and vice versa. Similarly, if you have heavier ions, so heavier ions will be less deflected, means their radius will be more. So they will acquire, if you have, for example, you have any heavier ion than this one, it will acquire a bigger circle. So radius in that case would be more. So in a mass spectrometer, there are four fundamental units of a mass spectrometer. The first is ionization. You have an ionization chamber where a sample is introduced, and sample has got to be in gaseous state. It should be in vaporized state. Initially it could be in solid, liquid or whatever, but when it enters into ionization chamber, that should be in vapors state. In ionization chamber, these analytes is ionized by, there are many methods available for ionizing different type of samples. So some of the method will be used here to give charge to the analyte. So when these analyte is converted into ionic form, those ionic forms is accelerated. So second step is acceleration. So those beam of ions is accelerated using 3 slits which are kept at a high voltage, and these accelerated beam of ions, this is then deflected into a magnetic field. So this is called analyzer. In fact, the magnet here they are called analyzer. So this beam of ions, when it enters into the magnetic field, it deviates and the deviation is measured. So for example, here you have 3 different ions in the beam. They are denoted by red color, green color and blue color. You see, in case of blue color, the radius of deflection, means if you extrapolate this radius, it will be something like this. The radius is smallest in case of blue. Similarly, in case of green, this radius is more, and if you see in case of red is in fact is maximum. So this radius tells you about deflection of the ion, and that also depends, we have seen that depend on mass to charge ratio of the ion. So at a given magnetic field, we can say that only one type of ion reach to the detector. The last part of the instrument is detector, where ions are detected. So in a given magnetic field only you can see the green beam is being detected, whereas the blue beam and red beam, the blue beam is deflected most, red beam is deflected least. They are not reaching to the detector. So only at a given magnetic field you can collect only one M by Z type of beam. So in order to collect, then what will happen? This blue beam, it will collide with the wall of analyzer and it will get neutralized, and this whole system is kept at very high vacuum pressure, -7 to 10⁻⁻8 millibar. So at this, because of the high vacuum pressure, these ions which collide to the wall of the detector, they are removed from the system. Similarly, even red beam also will have the same fate, that also will be removed. You can only collect green beam at a given time. So then what do you do to collect for example, the blue beam? The blue beam has smallest radius. It means the deflection is more for blue M by Z containing beam. So in order to detect them, so blue beam reach to the detector, magnetic field should be lowered. If you reduce the amount of magnetic field, the blue beam will deflect less and lesser, and at some point it will find detector, so it will be detected. Similarly, if you want to detect red beam is deflected least. It means the magnetic field, the influence of magnetic field is least on red beam. So you need to increase strength of the magnetic field in order to detect red beam also in the detector. So in a typical magnetic sector mass spectrometer, you keep changing magnetic field strength, so that at a given magnetic field you collect only some beam, and when you increase from low to high, other M by Z containing beam of ions also detected separately. Then the sequence of process in a mass spectrometer, the first stage is ionization. Atom or molecules are ionized by knocking one or more electron off to give a positive ion. So if you knock off electron from any atom or molecule, it will become a cation. So that's what happens in case of a method of ionization called electron impact ionization, where they collide with the atom or molecule to knock off electron to produce cation. These cations are called parent ion, M+, and if it is not very stable, it may get fragmented into daughter ions, radicals and neutrals also. So in a mass spectra, you observe parent ions and all the daughter ions as well together. So that's because of fragmentation of a molecular ion or parent ion into the daughter ions. So this is stage 1. There are different methods of ionization. Those we'll discuss in other lecture. And it's not only by knocking off electron you can make ions. By adding proton also you can make ions. So you may have anion or cation. So that's why there are two modes of a mass spectrometer. It may have positive ion mode or negative ion mode, depending what method of ionization you have adopted. If you are, say, producing positive ions, so you have to use a detector, a mass spectrometer which detect positive ions, or vice versa. So in ionization chamber, you have electrically heated metal coil which is heated and that radiate electrons. Now these electrons are collected by electron trap that is positively charged, and they have very high speed also. So when you introduce your sample into vapor state, your analyte enter to the ionization chamber, and in between these electrons are bombarded on that analyte. As a result, these electrons are able to knock off electron from the analyte, and analyte become positively charged. Then you have a ion repeller that is also positive charge. So in fact this entire chamber, ionization chamber, is kept at high positive electrode potential. So as a result of these positive ions formed here, these ions are repelled by ion repeller and they are directed into one direction, so that these positive ions they together they form a beam of ions which can be studied further on. The second stage is acceleration. Now these ions are accelerated, so they have all same kinetic energy, and they are coming from ionization chamber that is kept in 10 kilovolt voltage. There are 3 slits here. The last slit is kept as 0 volt. So as this is maximum 10 kV, and in between you have some in between voltage, and the last one as 0 volt. As a result, the beam coming from ionization chamber is accelerated, and they are accelerated into the direction, so they reach to the detector, and before that they are analyzed. So this is the beam of ions which is focused into analyzer. The third stage is analyzer, the deflection. Now these ions, they are focused, these are mixed ion stream. You have all kind of M by Z containing ions in this beam. So they are focused into a magnetic field, and magnetic field in fact works as analyzer here. There are different type of analyzer, those we'll discuss in other lecture later on. So in a typical magnetic sector analyzer, you have magnetic field which deflect all the beams depending on their M by Z. If lighter is the ion, it will have maximum deflection. Heavier ion will have least deflection. So that's how then this beam is focused into a detector which can collect the beam. So at a given magnetic field, you can collect only one type of M by Z containing beam. If you want to collect rest of the beam, then you need to change magnetic field. So for example here, this beam A, this stream A, ion stream A is deflected most, ion stream C is least deflected, and this is only B beam which is being detected by the detector. So in order to detect say blue beam, you need to reduce the magnetic strength of the magnetic field, and in order to see the red beam into the detector, you need to increase the magnetic field. So in fact in order to collect all the beams in the sample, magnetic field from lowest to highest is changed, and because the system, the mass spectrometer, is calibrated with the known M by Z containing ion, so that magnetic field where a particular beam is being collected, its M by Z can be calculated. So from analyzer, M by Z of ions is calculated, and now this specific M by Z containing beam, this is detected by a detector in the last stage. In the stage 4 is detection. So the beam of ion passing through the machine is detected electrically. Means the simplest detector is a metal strip. In the metal strip, we know that metal contains free electrons. When these positive ion, they collide with the metal strip, they absorb electron. So one positive ion will absorb one electron from the metal and get neutralized. After being neutralized, this is removed from the spectrometer. The same time, because the place from where this electron has been taken up from in the metal, there is a deficiency of electron generated. In order to cover up that deficiency of electron, other electron, they move at the same place. So this electron movement is nothing but that's electricity. It means when a positive ion collides with the metal strip, it creates electricity, and that electricity can be measured. In fact, it is amplified about 1,000,000 times in order to finally measure it. It's so little. So, and the electricity produced is directly dependent on ions colliding to the metal strip. That means from the value of electricity you are detecting, you can calculate the concentration of ions which are colliding to the metal strip. So now you have two things. First, you have got M by Z from analyzer, where strength of magnetic field was converted to mass to charge ratio of that specific beam, and when that beam collide with a metal strip in detector, you know the electricity produced. So that electricity produced means you can calculate how many, for example, how many ions would be colliding to the metal strip in order to give rise to that value of the electricity. So these two values are basically put together on X and Y axis, what you call mass spectra. So in a mass spectra, you have relative abundance that's coming from electricity being produced detected by detector, and on y-axis you have mass to charge ratio, and that is coming from magnetic field applied. So they are, in fact, this is mass spectra of butane, which has 58 Dalton molecular weight. So you see that butane is a single molecule, but when you run mass spectra, you get multiple peaks. So one of the peak would be equal to the exact molecular weight of this, where you have given positive 1 charge. So that will be at 58. That's called parent ion beam, or that's called also known as molecular ion peak. So this is molecular ion or parent ion peak. Then you have further in between, these are fragmentation product of this analyte. For example, you have maximum peak at 43 M by Z. So this maximum peak is taken by 100% by the instrument, and rest other peaks, they are in relation to this. So from the relative abundance, you can find out what is relative concentration of different species in the sample, what you are detecting, you are getting from mass spectroscopy. So for example, these are all fragmented molecules from butane. Then you have M plus symbol is given to the molecular ion peak, and then you have fragment ions. The base peak is the one which is having maximum intensity, the maximum concentration in the sample, and the molecular ion is the parent ion which is non-fragmented. So fragmentation occurs, for example, if you look at the spectra of benzamide. So benzamide is this molecule which is having mass of 121 Dalton. So when this is ionized, the mass become 121 divided by 1 M by Z would be 121. So you will see one peak at 121 Dalton. So like this one. So this is molecular ion peak or parent ion peak. Similarly, it is get fragmented further, like C6H5, it can get fragmented from here. The benzene ring can be separated, and you will have a mass of CONS2 group at 44. So one peak would be at 44. Similarly, the leftover will be 77 Dalton, the ionized benzene ring. So you will have another peak at 77. Or in between, if NH2 group is broken down from here, is fragmented from this group, you will have this carbocation, which is having a molecular weight of 105. So another peak would be at 105. So basically, small molecules, depending on method of ionization, they may get fragmented. And it has an extra advantage because from these fragments, the actual structure of a compound can be derived. But when you have a mass spectra of proteins, like for example this is spectra of myoglobin. Myoglobin is a protein, and you don't use very hard method for ionization because it can break into pieces. So in case of biomolecules, you use softer method. You don't use like electron impact we have just seen. You use matrix assisted laser desorption ionization MALDI, or you use electrospray ionization. Those methods we'll discuss in the next lecture. So those are soft ionization method where they don't break compound into pieces. They only provide iron to the species. So for example, protein, when you ionize protein, molecules get different charges, so you don't get a single peak from there. For example, some protein molecule may have plus 20 charge, and some molecule may have plus 19, 18, 17, and so on. So that's why you get multiple peaks at different m by z. The mass of this protein is over 16 kilodalton, but when you look at the spectra, you are getting all the peaks m by z corresponding less than 2000 dalton. So these all peaks, they are basically coming from same protein, but because the molecules, they have acquired different amount of charge, that's why when you look at the m by z spectra, you get multiple peaks. Now how do you derive molecular weight of this protein from this spectra? So for that, this is called deconvolution process. This is deconvoluted in order to find actual mass of the protein, and for that these peaks are, and in fact consecutive peaks are taken as pairs, and the peak m by z peak which is having less m by z is called m1, for example these two peaks, and the higher m by z peak is called m2. Now the charge on these peaks is calculated. If you know charge on each peak, then you can calculate mass, because m by z, you know this is m by z value, and if you know z, mass can be easily calculated by multiplying the charge on that peak, those analytes which are giving rise to that peak. So the charge is calculated by m2 minus 1.008. 1.008 is basically mass of hydrogen atom, because here the myoglobin is ionized by adding hydrogen atom. So m2 minus 1008 divided by difference of m1 and m2. If you do that, you can find out what is the charge on that particular peak. Z is charge, Z1 means this peak, the first peak. You can take any pair in fact. So then Z will be calculated. So after that, the Z can be multiplied with m1, because we know how much charge is there. M by Z is this much, and Z we know, so M will be, you multiply with Z, and you know that for example if Z is coming say 15, it means 15 hydrogen atom has been added, so you have to remove mass of 15 hydrogen from that multiplication. So in order to calculate molecular weight, Z multiply Z into M1, so Z1 is the charge on the M1 peak, and M1 is M by Z, and minus Z into 1008. 108 again is a proton, mass of proton, so you get actual molecular weight of that peak. Now molecular weight of each peak is calculated, that's slightly variable. So what computer does, algorithm does, it takes average mass of all the peaks together, and that is shown in form of a deconvoluted spectra. So similarly, for example, in this case, the mass of each peak can be calculated using this formula. And when you have mass of all of these peaks available, average mass can be used in order to draw a final deconvoluted spectra of myoglobin. Something like this. So you get a single peak which correspond to 16951 Dalton molecular weight. So this number is derived by deconvoluting the raw spectra which was obtained in form of m by z. So this is against mass. Now application, because mass spectroscopy give very accurate estimation of mass of any kind of analyte, so it had wide applications like in biotechnology, analysis of protein, peptide, oligonucleotides, in pharmaceutical industries, drug discovery, combinatorial chemistry, pharmacokinetics, drug metabolism. Drug metabolism, for example, you want to see how the drug is being metabolized in body. You can inject the drug into the species, in the animal, wherever you want to study, and then you can take the blood sample, you try to run mass spectra and see what are the fragmentation left over of the drugs they are present in the sample, and for how much time it's happening, that also can be calculated. In clinical aspect, neonatal screening, hemoglobin analysis, drug testing, you can use mass spectroscopy. For in environmental sciences, to check quality of water or to check contamination in water or food, you can run mass spectra, you can identify which are the compounds present in, for example, in water or in food. In oil composition also can be monitored using mass spectroscopy. It will tell you, the mass spectroscopy can tell you what kind of compounds are present in the oil. That's what generally is done also. In physics, identification of space particles also can be done by mass spectroscopy. In biochemistry also it has a wide application. Accurate molecular weight measurement is the most accurate technique to give molecular weight of analytes like even proteins in biochemistry. It can confirm whether your protein sample or DNA sample is pure or not. By looking at the mass spectra, you can see whether they are impurities or not. So you can determine purity. You can verify amino acid change. If you have a protein, you want to see whether amino acid change has occurred. Even single amino acid change you can see in the mass spectra. Then you also can detect post-translational modification into the protein. You can calculate how many disulfide bonds are there. You can see what kind of modification a protein has gone through after translation. That can be studied by mass spectroscopy. You can in fact do reaction monitoring in a biochemical reaction, how a reaction is being progressed with respect to time or change in environment. That also can be studied by mass spectroscopy. For example, we know that in a enzyme catalyzed reaction, substrate concentration goes down. So you can see how the substrate is being converted into product with respect to time by just keep taking its mass spectra at different time interval. You can do amino acid sequencing. You can, in fact, protein sequencing is also possible using mass spectroscopy, and that's called a variation of mass spectroscopy is called tandem mass spectroscopy. MS2 analyzers are used. That will cover in some other lecture later on. Oligonucleotide sequencing also can be done. How a protein ligand complex, if you want to see whether a protein bind to a ligand or not, you can simply mix protein and ligand together and see the mass spectra, whether the mass of the complex is seen in the mass spectra or not. So it has many wide applications in all branches of science. So as we know that in a mass spectroscopy you introduce sample. The sample may be introduced in solid, liquid or gas phase. That may be introduced from HPLC or capillary electrophoresis or GC. So for example, when you have sample coming from GC to mass spectroscopy, you call it GCMS. Similarly, is coming from liquid chromatography, you call it LCMS. So only difference is that from where the sample is coming, in what form sample is being introduced into a mass spectrometer. Then this is ionized. There are different methods of ionization. We have just seen electron impact ionization method. They are more like fast atom bombardment, MOLDI is another one, electrospray and so on. There are different methods which will be covered in different lecture. And then those ions, they are studied in analyzer. A simplest analyzer could be a magnetic sector, what we have just talked, or it could be a time of flight, or quadrupole, or ion trap, or FTIR, Fourier transform ion cyclotron resonance detector analyzer also possible. Those we'll discuss in separate lecture. And then finally, detector detect the response and you see the mass spectra.